Hey, it's Mike Shea of Sly Flourish and author of The Lazy Dungeon Master and Sly Flourish's Fantastic Locations. My show, The DM's Deep Dive on the Don't Split the Podcast Network, features a one-on-one discussion with guests like Sean Merwin, Enrique Bertrand, Teos Abadia, and more. Once a month, we dive deep into a single D&D topic and answer your burning DM questions. Watch us live on Twitch, on YouTube, or on our podcast on the Don't Split the Podcast Network. Let's dive deep.
This is Tabletop Babble. I'm James Intricasso. This week on the show, I'm talking with Alex Basso, Rudy Basso, and Allison Rossi about the Stream of Annihilation, Wizards of the Coast's enormous event announcing their new Dungeons & Dragons storyline and a slew of other products. There is a ton to cover, so we are going to jump right into that conversation. All right, everybody, now I'm here with three of my great friends, Rudy Basso, Alex Basso, and Allison Rossi. Guys, welcome to Tabletop Babble. I am super duper excited to have you all here. Rudy Basso, who are you and what do you do in the world of tabletop role-playing games?
Hi, I'm co-owner of this very network, Don't Split the Podcast Network. I have two podcasts. One is Have Spellbook Will Travel, an audio drama based on Dungeons & Dragons games that James, you and I have played, and also we put it together and do a bunch of stuff for that. And then Alex and Bass and I also have a podcast about video games called Game O'Clock, which is, it's about video games. It's a delight. Hi, how are you?
Oh, man, it's great to have you here. I'm well because I'm talking to you, Rudy. And you know who else I'm talking to?
I do. You named them at the beginning of the podcast.
I did. And we talked for a good while before we started the podcast. Allison Rossi, who are you and what do you do in the world of tabletop role-playing games?
The main place you'll find me right now is on Twitter at charm__person. So that's where I talk about D&D and a lot of Overwatch. Right now, I just relocated to the Los Angeles area, so I actually just left my Adventures League group that I used to play with every Wednesday. I DM'd for 2 years for Adventures League. I do podcasts occasionally when I'm invited on them. Otherwise, right now, I'm just kind of chilling because I'm looking for work and I don't have any D&D groups except for an occasional online group. So I'm just kind of cruising on through, waiting until my next group forms.
Alex Basso, what about you? Who are you and what do you do in the world of tabletop role-playing games?
Yeah, so I'm Alex Basso. I'm a part of the, I guess I'm a part of the Don't Split the Podcast Network. Yeah, because I do co-host the video game show, Game O'Clock, with Rudy. Mostly I just play tabletop games with my group, though I also moderate DM's Deep Dive with Mike Shea, another podcast on the network, a monthly podcast. I'm responsible for the live stream and picking out the questions for him. I don't have nearly the knowledge Mike Shea does, but I do hopefully get some good answers out of him.
He knows like everything, basically. He is the all-knowing.
He's got a lot of great tips and tricks for sure, and that is why we love him and we have him on a podcast. And we also love you, Alex Basso and Rudy Basso, because you guys make that podcast a podcast and not just Mike shouting into the abyss. And speaking of the abyss, today we are talking about the Stream of Annihilation. The Stream of Annihilation was a 2 12-hour days of streaming on the Wizards of the Coast official Dungeons & Dragons Twitch channel, where they had a bunch of streamers, people from Critical Role like Matt Mercer, people from great shows like Maze Arcana, great shows like High Rollers, great shows like Dice Camera Action. They had a bunch of the Wizards of the Coast staff. They had members of Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds and WizKids and Gale Force 9 and all these other great partners that they work with show up, talking about products, playing games, doing all kinds of cool stuff. And I guess burying the lead, right? That A-list celebrity, the next Batman villain, Joe Manganiello, was there playing D&D with everybody. So it looked like it was an awesome time, a fun celebration of D&D, but even more important for us and what we're talking about today, they announced a lot of new products. First thing they announced was the next storyline, hardcover adventure that we're used to seeing from Wizards of the Coast, the Tomb of Annihilation will be coming. Tomb of Annihilation takes place in the Forgotten Realms in the peninsula of Chult, which is this jungle peninsula that's full of uncharted territory with dinosaurs and undead and temples and all kinds of crazy things, weirdness, super pulp, think Indiana Jones. They're advertising this adventure as D&D on hard mode. There's even a meat grinder option where if you play that way, only 15 and above count as successes on death saving throws. The story revolves around Eserarak stealing the souls of the dead. So characters who have died in the past and have come back are diseased and they're starting to die, and people who die in this adventure can't come back. So it is. It sounds like a very gritty, pulpy, high-action, over-the-top adventure. The words "zombie T-Rex" were thrown around quite a few times. So that's sort of the world we're looking at. So with that in mind, what do you like about this idea? What do you dislike about this idea? And Allison, why don't we start with you?
Okay, so I have to say that I don't think there's anything I dislike about this idea at all. I guess if I wanted to nitpick, I could say that, the whole dinosaur things is a little bit weird compared to, your traditional D&D, even though Chult has been a thing for a while. Obviously, not everyone wants dinosaurs in their game, but they don't have to play this then if they don't want it.
Well,
I know when I was DMing,
who don't want dinosaurs
yeah, right.
in their game.
When I was DMing, my players loved dinosaurs. Anytime that they could bring dinosaurs into things, they were huge fans of it. So I am really looking forward to this and looking forward to kind of talking to my old players about this. My most recent character that I played, actually, I played a Bardlock in a Storm King's Thunder, and she was actually from Kalimshan, which is not far from Chult. So that was actually brought into my backstory multiple times. Having seen, she'd seen dinosaurs and whatnot. So, having this being the next adventure, I'm so excited for it. When I was taking notes, when I was watching the initial announcement, my note is, we're going to Chult, baby. I'm so excited for dinosaurs. So, undead dinosaurs, it's all going to be great.
Nice. So it sounds like you are very excited about it. Are you excited about the fact that it's going to be Dungeons and Dragons on hard mode?
Yes, because I know in the past, since I've only DM'd for about 2 years, I was always kind of careful and afraid of killing people's characters because I didn't want to be mean and, destroy the connection that they had to their characters, because I know how much it hurts to lose a character that you're really attached to. But this is kind of one of those, I guess, modules where it's going to be going in that you might die. So just be prepared for it because it's probably going to happen. I like that they upped the difficulty of death saving throws to the DC 15 instead of DC 10. So it's there's going to be some character sheet ripping up. After seeing Chris Perkins doing that, I'm like, I want to do that. I want that to be me.
Well, it sounds like Alison Rossi is full in for this. Rudy Basso.
I am all in.
Rudy, I was just talking with you about RPGs on hard mode the other day. What do you think? What are your likes and dislikes for Tomb of Annihilation?
I do think it's cool. It's a different experience. James, to your point, we were playing Lamentations of the Flame Princess, which is a very, very deadly OSR-style game. It makes me think of how, they've been saying from the beginning that they want to bring everybody back, everybody that's ever played D&D. Well, this is, for you old school gamers, here it is. You got your hard mode. You got Dead is Dead, and that's really exciting. It's just a different style of play from what we've seen. It's going to be a lot more, I guess, cautious, and that's kind of to what I wanted to talk about was that doesn't fit pulp for me at all. I don't think of Indiana Jones getting shot and killed. I think of him jumping into the crypt head first, escaping and being fine. I want to explore this world and not be afraid to be killed and be dead, be dead. Sure. So I feel like maybe the theme and these mechanics kind of fight each other in a way. That's my perspective on it. I can see the appeal of it as well, but I wish that these rules had maybe come out with another adventure and that maybe this one was more silly, fun, pulpy.
Sure, yeah. It's funny you say that because I actually had a similar thought. Well, if you're going to swing from vines away from undead velociraptors and things like that, you want to have the impetus to do that. And if you're afraid of dying at every turn, you're probably going to take less risks. Some people will. Some people will probably certainly take more risks, right? But yeah, I agree. I think there is a little bit of cognitive dissonance there, that it's like, I don't know, I'm going to want to do all this cool stuff, but I don't want to risk my life if it means that I'm going to die. But I do think the conceit of the idea behind the adventure, I'm glad that someone is finally recognizing that, like, hey, we can raise people from the dead, and that's great. Oh, no, we can't. Now it's a problem. Like, it's kind of cool that economy has played into it. So I agree. The cognitive dissonance is super weird, and I like both. And I'm excited to see how they work together. And I'm excited to see, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to play this game and not play it on hard mode, or maybe not even play it with the dead are not coming back kind of thing, Alex Basso, what about you? What do you think about jungles and undead and D&D on hard mode?
I like parts of it. I'm not... So I guess the thing that really doesn't interest me is like just the whole story of the adventure. I'm so over undead stuff, just personally.
That's my fault.
Yeah, maybe a little, James. I mean, I feel like in my 8 years of D&D, like 80% of it has been undead fighting related. So I can't really get excited over another lich, no matter how far back in history of D&D he goes. Mm-hmm. So, but I guess what really excites me is that they, I guess true to the original like modular idea they pushed out when they started talking about D&D Next all those years ago, is all this stuff can easily be inserted in any game. The island of Cholt itself does seem very different than anything else we're used to. I'm also on board the dinosaur train. The hard mode itself, it's not like I like difficult tabletops. It's not something I really expect my group to play, so I don't put too much, like, I'm not too interested in it. But as Allison said, like, having an adventure where everyone kind of knows beforehand going in, like, this is going to be difficult, this is going to be a lot harder than you're used to. That makes me excited that they actually decided to go out and put these rules for a tougher game that maybe one day I'll experience and enjoy.
You've got to find a new group, sounds like, of weenies. Which is what I am. But yeah, no, I agree. The art is extremely evocative and really gets the imagination going. It feels like something you might see in Star Wars too.
Yeah, it does.
So that's the Tomb of Annihilation in a nutshell. There's plenty more to cover that people can find online, but the stream, like we said, it was 24 hours of stuff, so we got tons to cover. And I want to cover the other big news. I think everybody expected there to be a storyline announcement. I don't think people expected the announcement of the Xanathar's Guide to Everything. The Xanathar is a beholder who runs a criminal outfit in Waterdeep called the Xanathar Guild. The Xanathar's Guide to Everything is a book of new player stuff. There's 20 new subclasses within there, 2 subclasses for every single class, and then 1 for the wizard. And then there's new downtime activities, new feats, new spells. It sounds like there's going to be some alternate rules for doing things like using tools and making traps and that sort of thing. So the Xanathar's Guide to Everything is coming out. I think this is super exciting. It's a book for players, sort of the first book for players since the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide came out. Alex Basso, I turn to you first on this one. Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Are you excited?
Oh, yeah, definitely I'm excited. Mm-hmm. As someone who never, ever really plans to DM, a lot of the books they put out, I end up not picking up. Because even though there's some stuff for players and there's usually good story background, overall it's like a lot of just things I'll never use. So to have another product like finally coming out that has players as like the main focus is something I'm really excited for. And unfortunately, I did just start another campaign, like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, like a month ago. So I just made my class and I picked my subclass, and I won't have too much of an opportunity to make a lot of use for it. I am excited for feats. Give me more feats. I want these feats. And the other things, I'm really interested to see if it's all going to be just a direct copy from the Unearthed Arcana, or if there are going to be like some final changes.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. I hope that there are some changes, because some of those Unearthed Arcana were like, this is great, this is ready to go, and some it was like, this probably needs some more work. So we'll see, and it presumably not every single one of those subclasses will even make it into this book.
Mhm.
It is going to be really, really interesting to see what this is. And it's also interesting because that's like, I don't know, what's that going to be? Maybe 30 to 50 pages of new material, but this is 200 pages. So what's the rest? You know, I really, really want to know that too. Allison, what about you? Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Are you on board?
I am definitely on board. I actually wasn't expecting them to announce something else, so I'm really excited for this. Unlike Alex, I buy basically every book that they put out, and the unfortunate part for my wallet is that they have an alternative cover. With Volo's Guide, I bought both versions of it. So, you know,
Awesome.
yes, I have both versions. So I'm probably going to be getting both versions of this one just because reasons, and obviously just need to spend more money on more books. I'm sure they don't mind that. So I'm really excited about the new subclasses, that's for sure. I actually went through and made a quick list of all the Unearthed Arcana subclasses, and there's way more than I thought. You know, like going back so far, I barely remember reading through half of them. So I'm excited to see which ones actually, you know, made it through and made the cut, and that they're going to be putting in this Xanathar's Guide. I like that they talked about, you know, what are the things that were missing from 5e? What toys and tools do we need to add in for DMs and players? So I'm excited to see these trap rules, especially because I know with traps, like, obviously that's not something I do in real life. I don't make traps or puzzles. So the fact that they talked about making more rules and making it easier to put those in for a DM, having rules in Xanathar's Guide, I'm looking forward to that especially. Also, the new rules for downtime, I'm curious to see what they do with that. I'm not really sure what to expect, just because I guess my players, we never really focus too much on downtime. So I'm excited to see if there's something that will make a reason for it to be in the game, at least at my table. And another thing I'm excited for is they mentioned that Xanathar is going to have a voice in the book. So it's probably going to be similar to Volo's Guide, where you're kind of hearing the inner thoughts of Xanathar. And I know they were talking about like his pet goldfish and how he'd go crazy if his goldfish disappeared and he'd vaporize everyone. So they like replace his pet goldfish that he loves like every time it dies. So I'm really excited to see kind of the crazy rambling mind of Xanathar, you know, being written into the book here. I'm curious how they're going to do that. Like, is it just going to be little notes scrawled in, or what they're going to do with that? So I'm very, very excited for this book. And I'm very excited to open up my wallet and get both versions of it.
Yeah, you brought up that Xanathar framing device. I think is really interesting, and it's one of those. You know, they talk about we're always putting the story first in 5th edition, and so it's cool that it's not just like here's a player's handbook 2 or whatever they would call it, right? That they're sort of framing it all in this device. I did kind of like the little notes in Volo's. I thought that those were fun. I was worried about them, but I think they turned out great. And so I'm excited to see some insanity from the Xanathar in the notes here.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. I think they did it really well in Volo's Guide, and I thought that they were very nice touches and made it kind of feel a little bit more personalized. So I'm looking forward to see how they do Xanathar's inner voice talking about his goldfish or whatever it may be.
Absolutely. So, Rudy, how about you? Xanathar's Guide to Everything. What are your thoughts?
Allison and Alex said the things that I wanted to say, which are, yay, feats. Give me more feats. I love 5e feats. I want them all. And I'm pumped for Xanathar's personal notes, because I really like that framing device for Volo. And I think Volo's great, and I think Xanathar will be great. And I look forward to Drist's Guide to the Underdark, or whatever.
If they did a Drist Guide to the Underdark, I would so 100% buy that. Like, I'd buy that so fast. I love the Underdark, so.
That's for free. Enjoy that. Take that.
Please do that, Wizards, please.
Those are the two things I'm most excited about for this. And downtime, why James and Jacasso wrote about downtime years ago. So I don't even need their rules. James has already made the best ones. I'm crossing my arms as I say that.
I also made some new tool uses that people can look up too. But I'm sure that these will only expand the downtime options, and it'll be great. It'll be great. You can have your world builder blog and your Xanathar. It'll be exciting.
I'm curious as to whether they want to make downtime like a real big thing, because that's like some of my favorite time is downtime when we're between adventures or saving the world or whatever. I just kind of want downtime. So if they really expanded on that to include, I don't know, like I'm playing Witcher 3 and I'm obsessed with Gwent. So give me D&D Gwent.
That game.
I know, Alex. I didn't like it at first, but now it's got its claws in me.
Maybe they could reintroduce D&D miniatures as something to do on downtime.
Sure. Yeah, we're playing the chess equivalent in D&D world. I don't know. I would love to spend like considerable time doing downtime stuff, like 2 sessions just dedicated to downtime and I don't know, meeting locals or whatever.
Yeah, and I think, it'll be cool to see how they expand that. And the Adventurers League does some interesting things with downtime, because at the end of every Adventurers League adventure, you earn downtime days, and then they give you... So, there's some things in the player's handbook you can do, but there are also other things you can do, like depending on your adventures. So, like, I met a stone giant on an adventure, and now with enough downtime, I can learn stone cunning like a dwarf would get for my character by going back and spending downtime like learning stones with this stone giant and stuff. So it would be cool to see those sorts of unique options and advice for how to build and create your own, because I think it would be like, I would love it if a player came to me and said, in my downtime, I want to do this, and here's how I propose we do it. That would be awesome. Hey everybody, James here. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know about our sponsor, Audible.com. Audible.com is offering you, the listeners of Tabletop Babble, a free audiobook and free 30-day trial of their service. You can check it out at audibletrial.com/DSPN. One book I think you will like is For We Are Many. It is an Audible original by Dennis E. Taylor, and it is an awesome sci-fi winner, and book listeners are calling this so much fun, what science fiction was meant to be. So check it out over at audibletrial.com/DSPN, or check it out with any of the other thousands of audio books available at audible.com. That's audibletrial.com/DSPN. So, moving on, I think we should talk a little bit about the streaming part of Stream of Annihilation. Essentially, all of these streamers who are invited are going to have new shows that are going to air once a week on the Wizards D&D channel. So there's going to be a Misclick show and a High Rollers show and two Maze Arcana shows. Dice Camera Action will continue, which has always been part of what they're doing. The Force Grey will not be streaming on their Twitch channel, but they've recorded that, and there's going to be Force Grey 2 is coming out. So all of that said, what do you all think about this move into streaming Wizards of the Coast has done? Allison, before we started, you shared this great sort of chart on Twitch that we'll link up in the show notes that showed they had a huge boost, way more subscribers now, a lot of people watching them. WotC is clearly ready to join the streaming ranks. Rudy, you and I are trying to demystify streaming Dungeons & Dragons kind of at the moment. Do you think this was a good move from them with these shows?
Yeah, I like that they're taking streams from the community and pushing those, as opposed to like making new groups based on picking people. But at the same time, I think that the best actual plays are with people who know and feel comfortable and have known each other for a long time. I'm watching some of these and it's kind of awkward, and I don't know that it's the most entertaining thing to watch. But there's a demand, obviously, for streaming, and it's good to see that the leader of this community, the leader of RPGs, really is kind of really embracing it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's good. I like that they're using people that are already have a background and have already a reputation in this world. It's fine. I don't understand dressing up. I just don't get it. I guess it helps to show like this is what my character looks like, but it's kind of distracting to me. That's just my personal opinion, and I just want to put it out there. You guys don't have to dress up. Just focus on playing the game.
So there's a group that I really enjoyed watching, to your point about lifelong friends, called Dragon Friends that played, and they're from Australia, and they dressed up all in suits, like suit and ties.
I love that.
Yeah, and they're like all about the comedy. They're improv comedy performers. And their sort of synergy and stuff really blew me away. I was like, wow, this is really impressive. And then I think other times during the streams, they were mixing and matching groups and that sort of thing. And so it was like,
that's okay. Where it was like, what is going on? And at one point, I don't like either playing with figurines or miniatures. I feel like that ends up to a lot of awkward kind ofness. A lot of times, people have these on in the background when they're working or whatever. I don't want to have to switch back to see what someone is pointing at or to see them moving miniatures around. Sure. I think a good stream needs to be all theater of the mind.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially, like you said, with the way people consume streams and things like that. That's a great thing to keep in mind. So, yeah, it's clearly working out for them. And I think, again, the same way that they've done things like, instead of trying to create their own virtual tabletop, they've gone to Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds. It makes sense that they would outsource this to people who are already streaming and that sort of thing. Allison, you stream video games sometimes. What do you think about this streaming strategy that Wizards of the Coast has?
So I think it's a really fantastic idea because a lot of these groups are already streaming anyways in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's a good idea for Wizards to kind of put their hands in there and start doing this themselves and have a little bit, I guess, reach out to a wider audience. And it might also potentially bring in money for them. I don't know if they plan on becoming partnered streamers. So then people could subscribe for, $5, $10, or $25 a month. And then they can have, special emotes in their Twitch chat and all that stuff and kind of make money off of it. I know like the Geek and Sundry channel has like probably close to 30,000 subscribers or something completely insane. And for your average partner, if you don't know, with Twitch, I think they take $2.50 of a $5 subscription, and then the channel gets the other $2.50. So $2.50 times whatever amount of subscribers, that can be an insane amount of money. So I'm curious, what they're going to be planning to do with that, or if it's just going to, help Wizards, but also help these people promote their own channels. I'm excited to see what they do with it. Unlike Rudy, I like the idea of dressing up as your character, and generally when I'm playing, I do some sort of thing that is related to dressing up or acting as my character. So I think that's a lot of fun, and I think it's really cute when they do that as well. I liked everyone being dressed up on the stream. I thought it was really fun, and I don't know, for some people it's too childish, and they don't like cosplaying, and they don't like dressing up, and da-da-da. I am a huge fan of it and getting into character and acting silly with a group of friends. And occasionally that just so happens to be on live stream. So I think it's fun.
Yeah, I think that old Friends theme is certainly one that everybody seems to be hitting, which is very important. Yeah, chemistry is so important between these groups.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So I think that, the fact that they're all comfortable dressing up and using voices, obviously a lot of them are actors or comedians, but making people feel comfortable enough to do that and having other people join in and enjoy that, I think is fantastic. And I think in this case, it is definitely a right move for Wizards to making D&D more accessible. Also, I like that Rudy mentioned that really with these streams, you need to do narrative combat. You don't really like to look and see if they're moving around miniatures or what they're pointing to or what they're talking about. So it's extremely important for them to kind of have that grasp on the rules and have that grasp on combat to be able to do narrative combat.
It's cool. One of the things that I noticed was there were several tables where it was like, hey, look, there's more women than men sitting at this table. And I thought that was great to see, that they are trying to grow their representative audience as well. I think they've still got miles to go and they've still got work to do and everything, but so does the streaming community as a whole, and so does the RPG community as a whole. So it was great to see them starting to like find more diverse people, because I want everybody to want to play D&D, and it helps to see people who look like you playing it. So I think that is huge as well, which is why I look exactly like Joe Manganiello. Yeah.
A quick note on that, though. In terms of representation and people playing D&D, actually, the reason I created a Twitter account, years ago was because I didn't have enough people to talk to in real life about D&D. So I was like, well, it seems like there's a lot of people on Twitter that talk about it. So when I joined years ago, almost all of the people following me and that I was talking to and communicating with regarding D&D were guys. And actually, I believe I did a Twitter analysis of like my followers, and like most of my followers on Twitter are like, men in between like 20 and 35 or something like that. But I've noticed in the past year, since like Critical Role and all these other shows have gotten really, really big, is there's so many more women following me and women talking about D&D and all different kinds of people from different backgrounds talking about it. So it's actually really fantastic the way representation, especially online, is really changing for people playing D&D. And that's great. I love that. So that's my last little bit there.
Yeah, that's a really cool little factoid, and it's glad to see, at least anecdotally, that things are becoming more inclusive is always great. Alex Basso, how do you feel about people dressing up?
Oh, dressing up? I don't really mind.
Oh, I thought that was a thing you hated.
Oh.
Alex, you're lying right now.
Alex, would you dress up? Would you dress up?
No, I would never dress up. Look, I don't mind people doing it if it makes you happy, and whatever. People are having fun. It's not a big deal to me. And I feel like, you guys were talking about the narrative thing and how it needs to be, easy to understand if you're not looking at it. It's like part of the reason you're on Twitch is because it's a visual thing. So people dressing up, separates it from a podcast Let's Play. Having miniatures on the table, actually having combat and rolling, that's what makes it more interesting to me for Twitch. I don't go on Twitch so I can alt tab in the background. Like, I'd rather just download a podcast. So I think you need to have those, that extra layer of visual content if you're gonna try and do a Twitch stream. So dressing up is fine. People, they have some nice costumes. I'll give them that.
Really nice.
And it is good to see Wizards, getting in front of this. Well, I guess maybe not getting in front. People have been streaming on Twitch for a while, but at least joining in on the Twitch stream and not completely forgetting about it and falling behind until it's like extremely popular and everyone but them is doing it. So good on them for finally recognizing something not too late and joining in.
There you go. So that's the Alex Basso opinion. I think we're all agreed that more D&D streams is a good thing, brings more people into the hobby, which is always great.
Does Paizo have a Twitch account? I'm just curious. As the other leader in the fantasy RPG world, I don't think they do.
I just Googled it, and it's twitch.tv/official Paizo.
2,000 followers.
So...
You gotta get on this, Paizo. You're already falling behind.
Being a slightly more complicated system, or way more complicated system.
Slightly?
Yeah, it might be a little harder to stream because you get so bogged down in certain rules and that sort of thing. That might be an issue. I don't really know a lot of Pathfinder streamers. I do know at Twitch/Padfoot240. That is
yes, our Monday night group that hasn't played in like 2 months. I mean, part of it was because I moved and there was a bunch of crazy stuff going on, but yeah, we do 3.5e with some Pathfinder skills basically. But whenever we end this campaign, which is soon, we're switching to 5e. So
cool.
There you go. Congratulations on playing a whole 3.5 campaign. That's huge.
Yeah, we've been going for I think 3 years now, maybe almost. Yeah, a little bit over 3 years. We started in like September 2013. So we've been going for like ever.
Let's talk about one more part of the stream. Accessories. Everything from dice to battle mats to miniatures to new board games showed up at the stream of Annihilation. And I just want to go around the table real quick and find out what were some of your favorite things that you saw there. And let's start with you again, Allison.
Definitely my favorite thing that's coming out is the Xanathar's Guide. I mean, in terms of the cover, at least. I'm really looking forward to what's inside of it as well. The dice are interesting, but, you know, when it comes to dice tins, I never keep them. I just put them all in the same bag. But, I mean, they're pretty looking. And I'm excited for new battle mats because I think that's, like, one of the most annoying things to purchase because not all stores have different sizes of battle mats or any at all. So, you know, hopefully, since it's a brand new product from Wizards, they're going to be putting those in stores and they'll be available to purchase because you can never have too many battle mats.
What about you, Rude Dude? What are some of your favorite accessories coming out of this?
I'm really excited for Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. Woo! You know, House on the Hill is such like a high concept, unique board game. Mm-hmm. I don't know the theme. I mean, when you hear about it, it's like that doesn't really make sense. Making a Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, like a D&D version of that. But I have a lot of trust in them. You know, they converted a kind of Euro style game with Lords of Waterdeep into one of my absolute favorite board games of all time. So I think that they can do a great job turning that great game into a fantasy themed great game. So I'm really, really excited for that. Yeah, it's just cool. You know, they're doing another board game that kind of follows that kind of Dungeons and Dragons light. Which is kind of what the other series of those games are, and that's cool too. But this one's so different and unique that I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, it is really, really cool, and it turns out it's kind of because like the team that is in charge of Wizards of the Coast board games, Avalon Hill, sits next to Mike Merles in the office, and this is sort of how it came about. So it's really cool to hear that's kind of how these things happen too. Yeah, I was excited about that. And how about you, Alex? What things are you excited by coming out of the stream of Annihilation?
Yeah, I'm gonna second Rudy. Go again with the Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. You know, all the minis and the dice, they look great, but unfortunately, pretty much only playing on Roll20, I almost never use any of those.
Sure.
So Betrayal at House on the Hill is a game that's been on my list of board games I plan to pick up. So the fact that they announced this before I went out and bought it makes me think I might wait, depending on if it's like a direct copy. I also agree with Rudy in that it is a little bit of a weird theme, but you know they could do something really cool with it. I really am excited to see like all the tiles and stuff. Just looking at this House of Blood, and I mean it's a pretty disturbing looking tile. You see the art, and you know who knows what else is there.
Sure.
So it could be exciting.
Yeah, it does sound like they did do what they can to make it very different. And it sounds like there may even be... So in Betrayal, most of the betrayer mechanics are public. You sort of know who the betrayer is when the haunt happens. And it sounds like in this, a lot of times you may not know who the betrayer is. So it's got a little bit more of a hidden roles game feel and that sort of thing. I am interested to see how they tweak it for D&D, and I do think Baldur's Gate is kind of a good place to set it, given the murdery aspects of your Baldur's Gate video games and that sort of thing. You know, gods of murder and the like. So yeah, I'm excited for that too. Well, glad I'm good. I'll have friends to play it with, so this is great. All right, well, I think that is going to do it for Tabletop Babble this week. Rudy Basso, where can people find you?
Hey, you can follow me on Twitter at Rudy Basso. Be sure to tweet that you think I'm like an old man for not liking costumes or whatever. That's fair. I'll take it. It's warranted. And then I mentioned at the top the other podcasts we do. There's some really great stuff on our network, too, including actual plays that feature narrative combat and story and role playing, and it's really good. So please listen to those.
Yes, absolutely. So those are a blast. We really, really love our actual plays. We love DM's Deep Dive with Mike Shea. And we love Have Spellbook Will Travel. So check out the shows on the Don't Split the Podcast network. What about you, Allison? Where can people find you?
As I mentioned earlier, you can mostly find me on Twitter at charm__person. I talk about D&D sometimes, and I also talk about Overwatch a lot. You can also find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Eloanna, EHLOANNA. So those are the two main places you're going to find me.
And Alex Basso, where can people find you?
So you can follow me on Twitter at @yo_Alex Basso. You probably won't find me there. I've given up on saying I'm gonna actually tweet. I'm just,
I mean, you did. You did do it that one time. So, like,
I'm the best at retweeting, and by the best I mean occasionally I do it, and I'm terrible at actually tweeting anything. You can also, find me on the shows I mentioned before: Game O'Clock, DM's Deep Dive. You can check out the Twitch, Don't Split the Podcast Twitch, where I stream monthly Mike Shea's DM's Deep Dive, and occasionally with Rudy, we stream random video games to go with, I guess, Game O'Clock, the podcast, but we'll play games that are completely unrelated to whatever we're discussing. We'll just play what we want. And sometimes people watch. A lot of Heroes of the Storm, if you like that. Roll20 just sponsored a Heroes of the Storm team, by the way.
That's
right. Anybody?
And you're on it, right, Alex?
I wish.
Well, I think it's pretty awesome, and I do think people who listen to this show will probably be real interested in the latest Game O'Clock genre, Western open world RPG-ish games, your Bethesda's, Skyrim's, Fallouts, and other similar type games being discussed. I know I am eating that stuff up with a spoon. Because those kinds of games are my jam. Your Witcher 3s. So yeah, definitely check out Game O'Clock, people, if you're out there, and listen to the dulcet tones of the Bassos and Mark Smith. Well, thank you so much for joining me on Tabletop Babble today, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Man, that was a great show, and I want to thank the team at Wizards for putting on Stream of Annihilation for the fans. Greg Tito, Nathan Stewart, Trevor Kidd, Shelly Mazanoble, I know you all worked super duper hard putting together some great stuff, and I know that the team, the design team, Mike Merles, Jeremy Crawford, Chris Perkins, worked hard putting together some great products for us, and everybody else who works there, you are all awesome as well. Thank you so much for that, and thanks to Rudy, Alex, and Allison for coming on this show. Tabletop Babble is still a pretty new podcast, and we could use your reviews to help people find us. In fact, if you leave us a 5-star review, I will read it verbatim here on the show, and it is time for me to do that right now. Here's a 5-star review from iTunes by El Judarino4444. He says, "Great podcast. A stellar job by these folks, delving into what lies between the lines of the DMG. Fantastic advice on how to make a game fun and engaging for your players." Well, El Duderino, thank you so much for hanging out and listening to this podcast and leaving us a 5-star review. You are the man. Before we go, I just want to take a moment to talk about all of the other great podcasts that are on the Don't Split the Podcast network. You've got awesome shows like Venture Maidens, Game O'Clock, Dames and Dragons. You've got stuff like the DM's Deep Dive with Mike Shea, and one of my personal favorites, Have Spellbook Will Travel. Go check them all out over at don'tsplitthepodcastnetwork.com. All right, people, you can find me on Twitter at JamesIntroCasso. That's INTROCASO. And you can read all about the stuff that I'm doing, my design work, and get some free resources for your D&D games over at worldbuilderblog.com. Tabletop Babble is a show on the Don't Split the Podcast network, thanks to Rudy Basso for founding it with me. Our theme music, which you're listening to right now, was provided by Battle Bards. Remember that RPGs are like sex. As long as everybody's having fun, you're doing it right.
Oh man, I really want to experience the magic of Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm a cave hermit who made an oath never to speak to other people again.
And I want to watch a classic fantasy series like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, but I can't stand the sight of human faces.
Well, I want to relive the magic of make-believe, the humor of a preschool-aged child, and the genuine camaraderie of nearly 10 years of friendship through only my ears, but I don't know how.
You ignorant fools! You don't even know about Dames and Dragons!
What? But Dames and Dragons? What's that?
Dames and Dragons is a Dungeons and Dragons actual play podcast.
A podcast? So I can experience the spontaneous group storytelling of D&D without breaking my oath of solitude?
That's right.
And I can take part in a rich fantasy storyline without ever having to lay eyes on a disgusting human face?
Never again will the faces plague you.
And it has a cast of 4 female friends who make constant immature jokes as they play?
Absolutely. I would never lead you astray, my friend. Whether you love D&D or just love a good fantasy tale, Dames and Dragons is the podcast for you. Tells the story of 3 unlikely heroes who are chosen to become guardians of the goddess of their world, a floating island by the name of Estra.
By God, that sounds like something I could get into.
Sounds like something I'd love. Sounds like something I'd make.
Well, that's just ridiculous. Dames and Dragons, updated every second Monday wherever podcasts are sold.